should be good.
Thank you. Hello, everyone, and welcome to RBCM at Home. My name is Kim Goff, and I'm a learning program developer at the Royal BC Museum. I'm coming to you today from my office at the Royal BC Museum, which is located on the territories of the Lekwungen in Victoria, British Columbia. I want to extend my thanks and appreciation for the opportunity to live and learn on this territory. And I invite you to think about the place where you are right now and the First Peoples of your area and the Indigenous connections to the land and place where you are. Here I am. Here's our guest today, Kiriko Wantanabe. RBCM at Home started in March when our museum and archive closed due to the pandemic, and it was an opportunity to talk to staff about what they were working on from home. Now, even though the museum has reopened, we've continued this program as a way of staying connected with people at home or schools around the province. This program and previous ones have been recorded, and you can find them on the Royal BC Museum's YouTube channel. Today, my guest is Kiriko Wantanabe, the Gail and Stephen A. Jarislowsky Curator at the Audain Art Gallery in Whistler. Kiriko is the project manager and co-curator of our current feature exhibition, Emily Carr, Fresh Seeing, French Modernism and the West Coast, which is on now until January 24th. Kiriko was responsible for all the production aspects, including the companion publication. In the exhibition, she took the lead on the section that focuses on Emily Carr's work immediately after her return from France in 1912. Today, Kiriko is going to highlight some of the works you will find featured in the exhibition. So welcome, Kiriko.
Thank you, Kim, for inviting me to participate in the Royal BC Museum at Home program.
Oh, you're so welcome. And perhaps we may have people here who aren't familiar with the Audain Art Gallery in Whistler. Can you tell us just a little bit about it?
So I'm joining you today from my office in the Audain Art Museum in Whistler, which is situated on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territories of the Squamish Nation and Lillooet Nation. We have permanent exhibition of works from BC art collection, BC art from our permanent art collection, and 2 temporary exhibitions that we feature in a year. And many of our collection were donated from Mr. Michael Audain and Ms. Yoshiko Karasawa, who also supported through the Audain Foundation to build this state-of-art museum.
It's a beautiful building. If people have been there, they'll remember the architecture really stands out, and the space itself and the natural light is beautiful.
It's the building was designed by Vancouver architects John and Patricia Paco, their firm.
And Emily Carr, Fresh Seeing, you were saying this was your first project when you joined the Audain Gallery.
Yes, I joined the Audain Art Museum only 2.5 years ago now. So at the time when I was hired as a curator, the exhibition was already conceived, and it was, may I start my slide?
Yeah, please, yeah.
Because I wanted to show you this slide because the reason this exhibition plan was originally started was because of this painting. The picture you see behind the title of the exhibition is a painting called Le Paysage, Brittany Landscape, which was acquired into the Audain Art Museum's permanent collection. And this is an important, very important painting, as it was exhibited at the Salon de Temps in Paris in 1911, which was a remarkable outcome for Emily as a result of her study in France. So when I joined the team, the exhibition was to be featured with full catalog, both in French and English, in a year and a half, which is a a lightning fast speed for developing a historical exhibition of an artist of national importance. As I developed the curatorial framework for this exhibition, which was to focus on her time in France, I've approached Dr. Catherine Britch, the Emily Carr scholar, to join our team. And through a series of discussions with Catherine, we've realized that it would make more sense to include works Carr created, not only her the ones that she created while she was in France, but also before going to France and after visiting France, to visually illustrate her artistic development in a comprehensive and chronological manner.
And Kiriko, what is the name of this painting again, this inspirational painting?
So when it was exhibited in France, it was called Les Paysages. And in the English title of this work is Brittany Landscape.
Brittany Landscape, thank you.
Sorry, I'm trying to move to the next slide.
You try clicking on the screen and then try your arrow, that might work. There you go.
What you're seeing are watercolors that Emily Carr had made before going to France. And these are both from area near Alert Bay. You see on the left, the row of houses along there, the boardwalk as you arrive to Alert Bay. And they were from around 1907 to 1909. Emily Carr visited this coastal village in 1907, 1908, and 1909. And when she went to France, she brought some of those watercolors with her. And as Catherine mentioned in her presentation as part of this series, Carr mentions in her writing and growing pains that she brought some of her watercolors or earlier works with her and showed them to her art teacher, Phelan Gibb, while she was in France. And it tells us that she was thinking about the work she did before and what she wanted to create once she's back in Canada. So when Emily showed, again, what you're seeing on the left is a watercolor that she did before going to France. And when Gibb saw some of those works, we don't know exactly which watercolors that Emily had brought to France. I'm hoping one day someone in France will share possibly one of Emily's old works, which she may have gifted, and will have a remarkable discovery of an unknown Emily Carr work, but we are yet to hear any surprise news. But anyway, Gibb's reaction to Carr when she showed him her earlier watercolors was that her bigger approach that she was learning in France was going to help with this subject matter. What you see on the right in this slide is a same subject, same work that she reproduced after coming back from France. After returning France, she spent some time in Victoria briefly and set up a live-in studio in Vancouver in around January, February 1912. And she probably had some time to experiment. And I think these works that we know that she created in 1912, that we know also have earlier versions, I would think that she would likely have created this, tested, experimented this before she went to visit the coastal villages in BC in the summer. So here you see another comparison of a watercolor that she did. This on the left is from the Royal BC Museum's collection, and the one on right is included in the Fred Seeing exhibition. And you see how her style changed quite dramatically within just a few years apart, and the medium also changed. After studying in Paris, France, post-impressionist and Fauvist styles that she encountered, you can see how her the colors in her oil work is so much more vibrant, stronger than her watercolor that you see on the left.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Kiriko. So one of the hallmarks of this French modernism, of this painting that she was learning, are these colors themselves, those vibrant colors?
The vibrant colors, and also in France, she learned that the artwork that she produced didn't have to be exact. So she may have simplified some areas. She may have exaggerated, as you can see in this example, the welcome figure that you see in her oil on canvas version is almost as tall as the longhouse behind. So she's learned that she can, in this new way, she can be free, she can express herself more freely. The brighter color, the cleaner lines, in certain areas, simpler form with more intensity to create more impact. Do you see that very clearly?
You really do. Like, yeah, the colors, the shapes, and there's this different energy, I would say, also to the painting. So going from something that's more documentary and realistic to something that is more maybe emotional somehow.
Mm-hmm. And then when you look at them closely, the treatment that she did with the sky and the trees, even within sections, within one painting, there's a lot more emphasis and also less emphasis to create the stronger portion, stronger area, and a lighter area within the same work. So in the summer of 1912, after coming to Canada, she was extremely inspired to produce more work of coastal peoples of BC. And she went to visit a number of villages in the Skeena Country region, Haida Gwaii, and Arar Bay areas over 6 weeks in July and August. So here you see the number of village names, which have been updated. The spelling of the names reflect current First Nations spellings. They're extremely complex and variations because they are based on the sound. So depending on who you ask the spelling, whether the speaker is a younger person or elder, the sound of the name is slightly different, which makes the spelling slightly different as well. So in producing this map, I struggled a bit and had consulted with Kusan Historical Village and Museum Skidegate Haida Immersion Program with elders from Skidegate and a couple of individuals from Old Masset for names of Northern Haida villages, and Omesta Cultural Center for names of Kwakiwakwa traditional territories. As you can imagine, these people spoke different dialects. Think about Emily visiting all those places that are hard to reach on her own with her companion dog, Billy, over 100 years ago.
And how old was Emily at this time? She about in her...
So she was 38, 39 when she went to France. So she would have been just shy of 40 in summer 1912 because her birthday is in December. Here we see on the left is the historical photo of Hazelton showing features of the totem pole. And on the right is a painting on board, oil on board that Emily made in Hazelton. I'm starting with this. I wanted to show what the village that she had visited would have looked like. So the picture you are seeing is about taken around the same time that Emily visited. So this is in a way the opposite of what Catherine did for her French section, in which we show pictures that Catherine had taken in France. So contemporary photos to juxtapose, to compare what the landscapes today look like. But here we see Emily has used the verticality of the canvas. The totem pole is integrated within that landscape. You see the features of this particular village with the streets running through and the houses alongside, with the mountain, which is the key landmark of this particular area. And then this on the left is another painting that she did in Hazelton. Hazelton Totems is the title of the work. And I put this painting aside the work of Duncan Ferguson, A Woman on the Balcony. Duncan Ferguson was one of the teachers that she had in France. She's taken some private studio lessons from Ferguson, I thought these two would give you a really good idea of some of the characteristics that you can observe in Duncanson's work. He uses clear or strong black outline around the key features in his painting. He's also using the balcony, the structure of the house, and the woman standing there to create as a framework to make the sort of immediacy and the sense of distance past these centered objects or features in his painting. And also the gradual changes of colors that you can observe in the background. So the dark outlines the use of void and space between large structures. Emily's applying what she may have learned from this particular artist in her production of her Canadian or painting that she produced in BC. And here we have a large oil-on-canvas painting of Kispiox alongside a painting that Catherine talked about, the Autumn in France, which Emily had painted in the summer of 1911. And this painting, although we don't have the documentation to prove it, but it's considered to be one of the two paintings that she showed at the Salon de Temps in 1911. I put these two side by side because you can see some of the similar techniques that she used in her French painting, but also the complexity or possibly challenges that she had back at home to depict totem poles probably was quite hard for her. With all those vertical structures and detailed features that she's expressed in those totem poles. I was curious, let me show.
I also love the colors you're seeing in this comparison, her use of the purples and the pinks. And you can see, and the sky, the way she's painted the sky is very similar between these two, between her work in France and her work in Kispiox.
Yes. And then a couple more paintings from Kispiox. I was curious to find out what totem pole covers today may think of Carr's depiction of totem poles from their ancestral lands. So I talked to some of totem pole covers today as part of my research. And one artist I talked to from Kispiox was Yaya Haidt. And he actually recarved one of the totem poles featured in those paintings, the one that you see with frogs. So the one on the left in both of the paintings. And he says that that's his Uncle Mao's totem pole. And he called it Frogs All Jammed Up. He was immediately responding to the colors that he saw because he's seen black and white pictures taken around the time Emily visited, but never these poles depicted in color. So he had a little bit of reaction to the colors that Emily used. So I asked him what he thinks of that, and he said it's great. His people loved bright colors, and they would have some bright colors like red and black from trading, but they wouldn't have painted their totem poles in. I mean, the one on the left is very blue, like blue and orange, and they wouldn't have been painted those colors. But he said that it's completely fine. It's okay. He respects Emily's artistic take, and he actually was had showed some respect for Emily that she visited such a remote place at the time, and he's glad that she recorded those poles in her own way, so we can look at them 100 years later.
So although her work is less documentary, he could still recognize features and family poles, and had a positive response to the colors she used.
It's both documentary, but as well as slightly with different take. Because by looking at totem poles, you can see which pole she's drawn. And maybe I'll also point out what he told me. The one on the left, you see how totem poles are sort of randomly placed, but these were all removed to make a way to build railway. And after that, all those totem poles were arranged in a linear manner so the tourists can see them more easily. Oh. So for him to see them arranged in a way that his people did was also very emotional.
There's a question here about the poles, the paintings from Kispiox in particular. Christine is wondering when they were painted. So this trip is in 1912. Did Emily produce these oil paintings on the trip, or was that later when she came back to Vancouver and Victoria?
She's taken a number of boards, wooden boards to paint and paper. Carter Morey discusses in details what she had produced more on site. She learned in France the importance of drawing what she saw on site and the emotional reaction that she had right there at that time. So these would have been painted there. Some of the bigger works, like this one, oops, I'm going wrong way. Oops. This one on the left, Kispiox, is a larger work, which she would have likely completed back in her studio in Vancouver. I wanted to show you both Frances Hodgkin's work on left and Emily Carr's watercolor on right. So Frances Hodgkin was a New Zealand artist that Emily Carr had taken some lessons when she was in France, in Concarneau. We saw some of her earlier works at the beginning of my presentation. What you see on the right was produced when she visited Canoe in Haida Gwaii in 1912. And this, you can see how she evolved in producing watercolors as well. This watercolor is her exceptional work. It's actually not seen in public since it was originally acquired from Carr by Dr. Max Stern of Dominion Gallery in 1944, and it's included in the exhibition. So I hope that many people will have a chance to see this amazing work in person. It's the condition and color and the vivacity of this watercolor is absolutely remarkable. And I just love looking at the mood that she achieved in producing through the sky, the trees, and the vegetation in the foreground. So I wanted to show you this picture of William Luss and Clara Russ, who appear as Jimmy and Louisa in her book, Clewick. I obtained this picture from their niece, Gladys Gladstone, when I visited Haida Gwaii as part of my interview in winter 2018. Carr herself describes her trip to Canoe and totem poles she saw there in Clewick Stories. And I wanted to share this particular quote today because it really matches with her drawing that I'm showing here on the left. And also the picture taken around that time, I was able to find one that's almost identical. So Emily says, a tall, slender one belonged to Louisa's grandmother. It had a story carved on it. Louisa told it to us in a loose sort of way, as if she had half forgotten it. Perhaps she had forgotten some, but perhaps it was the missionary's daughter being there that made her want to forget the rest. On the base of this pole was a figure of a man. He had on a tall hat, which was made up of sections and was a hat of great honor. On the top hat perched a raven. Little figures of men were clinging to every ring of honor all the way up the hat. And here, Emily goes on to describe, beyond the little point there were 3 fine house fronts. A tall totem pole stood up against each house. In the center of its front, when Jimmy, William Russ, cut away the growth around the foot of them, the paint on the poles was quite bright. The lowest figure of the center pole was a great eagle. The other 2 were beavers with immense teeth. They had sticks in their hands. All 3 base figures had a hole through the pole so that people could enter and leave the house through the totem. And this is one of the largest, if not the largest, painting that Emily produced in her life, which is in the collection of RBCM and is the last painting that you see in this exhibition. And then she also goes to Skedans. She says Skedans was more open than Tenu. The trees stood further back from it. Behind the bay, another point bit deeply into the land so that light came in across the water from behind the village too. And you can see in this photograph, which was taken probably about 10 years before Emily visited there. And in her watercolor, you can see one of the frontal board has fallen off. You can feel the passing of the time. By the time Emily visited these villages, because of the tremendous decrease of population due to the smallpox and measles, those people had left their traditional lands, their long houses, and joined people in Skidegate and Masset, which are the 2 main villages on Haida Gwaii today. And here's another painting on the left, a large oil on canvas that Emily did back in studio. I don't know if you can see this, but there's a tiny patch on the top, almost right corner in the sky. I don't know if you can see a round patch, which would have been made by Emily. She must have accidentally poked into the canvas and made a hole. And I know that this would have been done by her because the paint applied on the surface of the patch and behind the original canvas were the same paints when we saw it under UV light.
So I think I see the patch. It's sort of, it's in a darker blue part of the sky, maybe
Yes.
above the second pole on the right side.
I don't
Quite
know
near
if
the
you
top.
can
There,
see my...
yeah, I saw your mouth. Yeah.
Oh,
there
you can see my
cursor
arrow.
is.
Yes. So I thought it was funny and tells Emily's personality. She had to be economical in certain way because these art supplies would have been expensive and it wasn't like she was doing financially all that great after coming back from France. How am I doing with time?
We are almost out of time, and I realize some
Okay.
people may have to go. So I just want to reassure folks that the recording will be on the YouTube channel, for RBC Museum's YouTube channel as well.
I just have a couple more slides. This is a inside of a longhouse from Kwakiwakwa territories. It's a large oil on canvas painting that she had created back in studio. And in this one, you can see that she added some figures to animate her work. We could assume when she visited Alert Bay, it was during the summertime and most villagers would have been out fishing or harvesting food and wouldn't have stayed inside of their longhouse like the way she painted. And this is another way of sort of observing her own take to portray the more indigenous life. She looked like she tried to throw more life into the scene she depicted. And I'm going to end my presentation today by showing the watercolor that she did. This is a graveyard, it's called The Lone Watcher. The marker on a graveyard entrance in Campbell River area. And the middle is a oil canvas that she did based on this watercolor. And the one on the right is a contemporary work by Sonny Asu, who did the digital intervention on Emily Carr's work. So in the accompanying publication, I wanted to also discuss the importance of Emily's work that continues to people today and artists today, and how her work has influenced. I mean, we are so fascinated by Emily, her personal stories, as well as the works that she did. And it continues today. It's 100 years later, it's still extremely relevant to artists who work in BC, Indigenous people who continue to carve totem poles and their sculptures. And that's the end of my presentation.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Kiriko. There's many comments coming in about people enjoying the presentation and being able to see the comparison side by side and the impact, not only with the paintings, but with the photographs. There is a question here. I'll get you to stop sharing, Kiriko, and then we can see you. There is a question here from Hillary, wondering about, she's referring to the painting you showed us of Kispiox, where it's quite blue. And Hillary's wondering if the shades of blue maybe are being used to represent the aging and the silvering on the pole, and is wondering if there was still, in 1912, would there still have been original paint on those poles when she painted them, or would they be quite faded?
It depends on the painting you're looking at. The oil on canvas works look still remarkably vivid. And especially some of the paintings have gone through conservational treatments. And after properly being cleaned, the paintings come back to life. That Kispiox painting in particular is so blue. I mean, you see the same kind of blue in several paintings of hers from that time. But that painting somewhat stands out because you don't see many other colors. And it's quite possible that those totem poles were already weathered and looked quite silverish. But again, because by the time Emily visited, she talked about how people were not carving new totem poles. But also in some areas, especially in Alert Bay areas, like artists like Charles James, they were still carving quite actively. So I don't know, that's the color Emily had chosen to paint that particular work.
Yeah, thank you. There's a question here, I think that I was wanting to ask as well. So thank you, Laura, for asking it. Laura's wondering, how accepted was Emily by the other painters of her time when she came back from France with this fresh new way of seeing? How did people respond to her?
So she exhibited her works out of her studio in Vancouver, and again at the Drummond Hall in 1913, which would have included those West Coast paintings that she produced in 1912. And they knew that she learned at the forefront of art in France. And they knew that she was showing new work of art. But they were so strange. I mean, we talked about how her work still today to us is modern. But if you think about it, and even picture what the life in Victoria, Vancouver, 100 years ago was horse carriages on the street. These were very strange to them.
Mm.
They knew totem poles weren't blue. They knew that there wouldn't have been orange highlights in the sky. So they thought that Emily's gone out of her mind. They didn't understand this artistic take that Emily tried so hard to introduce to her work. So some of them are very hard to her, but some others, like art critics of the time, had considered her works to be of something new. In the catalog, we introduced Emily's speech that she made in Victoria in 1930. So that would have been over 20 years later, in which she talked about her experience in France and also her understanding of what modern art was to her. And it was then that people in Victoria had more wider acceptance of her work, being one of leading Canadians, BC artist. And at the time already, she had shown her works. Her works were shown in the National Art Gallery in their exhibition of West Coast Art in 1927. So it took a long time for people to catch up with the point of view that Emily was trying to explain. But that didn't lead to sales of her art right away. So you can imagine how hard it might have been for her. She mentions in her writings a few times that she believed in this. She believed this fresh seeing, and she couldn't go back her old way.
Yeah. Wow. So changed by it, and it's reflected so beautifully in those examples that you shared with us. Thank you so much. There's a question here if the exhibit will be extended. I have not heard so. I've not heard that. So the last date for it is January the 24th that I'm aware of at this time. There is the video. So there's a recording of Kiriko and the co-curator, Catherine Bridge. They are walking through the exhibit and showing the highlights. That video is available for purchase on the Royal BC Museum's website. So that's one way to see the exhibit if you can't come here in person. And there are some more recordings on RBCM at Home with Dr. Catherine Bridge talking about Emily Carr's time in France. So there's a specific itinerary of that Dr. Bridge was able to figure out some of the exact places where those paintings were made and where even Emily sat to paint them. So that is explored both in the exhibit, but also in the book. Which is also available and that Kiriko was responsible for. Kiriko, what a powerful exhibit it is, and thank you for sharing a portion of it through this presentation today. I really appreciated the chance to be able to see it again from that lens. And I wanted to thank everyone again for joining us. Again, if you joined late or if you missed something and want to go back, you will find the recording on the Royal BC Museum's YouTube channel. So please have a look there. You'll also find information about future at-home kids and outside programs. Our next program is January 19th, when archivist Genevieve Weber will give us an introduction to the BC Archives. We're so glad you could join us, and if you are able or have the funds to support us, please consider making a donation or becoming a member. Of course, we understand if you can't, and don't worry, this program will always be available and free for you to enjoy. So until next time, take care of yourselves and one another.